Donald Trump's desperation was showing as he delivered a speech in Claremont, New Hampshire, where he flew completely off the rails. Donald Trump delivered a speech in Claremont, New Hampshire on Saturday, and it was somehow even more deranged than we are used to. I want to play one moment in particular where he used language that once again directly mimics that of Hitler. I'll show you the other moment also in just a bit from him recently where he does this as well, but here he escalates his dehumanizing language against his political enemies, calling them vermin. By the way, we'll also get to comparing Trump's Veterans Day message to that of Biden's. Very different, as you might be able to guess. Before playing the clip, though, here is some context from the Washington Post. Trump calls political enemies vermin, echoing dictators Hitler, Mussolini. Former President Donald Trump denigrated his domestic opponents and critics during a Veterans Day speech Saturday, calling those on the other side of the aisle vermin and suggesting that they pose a greater threat to the United States than countries such as Russia, China, and North Korea. Well, those are his favorite countries. What the heck? That language is drawing rebuke from historians who compared it to that of authoritarian leaders. Ruth Ben-Ghiat, a historian at New York University, said in an email to Washington Post that calling people vermin was used effectively by Hitler and Mussolini to dehumanize people and encourage their followers to engage in violence. And by the way, vermin refers to pests that destroy crops and carry disease and all these different bad things. With that being said, here is Trump in New Hampshire over the weekend.
Today, especially in honor of our great veterans on Veterans Day, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections and will do anything possible. They'll do anything, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and to destroy the American dream. The real threat is not from the radical right. The real threat is from the radical left, and it's growing every day, every single day. The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within. Our threat is from within, because if you have a capable, competent, smart, tough leader, Russia, China, North Korea, they're not going to want to play with us. And they didn't. Despite the hatred and anger of the radical left lunatics who want to destroy our country, we will make America great again.
Just truly deranged stuff. Number one, using that exact word, vermin, is notable. And number two, continuing to push the idea that the enemies inside the country are worse than anything else. And we're not even the same type of Americans, essentially. Ben Meiselas of the Midas Touch Network wrote on X in response to that clip saying, the media needs to understand the power of its pen and lens in what it covers. Trump is the leader of the GOP, and when he parrots Hitler, it's worse than journalistic malpractice to say it's just Trump being Trump. It's actually complicity. And he's right. We can't allow ourselves to normalize Trump's behavior and act like he's just another candidate, or act like this isn't something we should be extremely alarmed by and opposed to. Oh, it's just Trump being Trump. I've said it so many times recently, but whether it be in relation to his attempts to overturn a free and fair election and block the peaceful transfer of power, or recently promising to lock up his political opponents, or threatening the life of his former top general, or rhetoric like this, we can't treat this stuff from Trump as normal or get numb to it. As a reminder, we looked at this clip in a past segment of Trump once again echoing the rhetoric of Hitler in relation to migrants.
Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from, and we know they come from prisons. We know they come from mental institutions, insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country. It's so bad.
And as we covered originally with that clip, the type of wording that he used is just right out of Mein Kampf. And Trump knows it, by the way. He's long been reported to have a Hitler fascination. So he's picking this up directly from the language of Hitler. And why do we bring this up? Is it to be hyperbolic or to say the guy that we don't like is as bad as the worst dictator? No. It's just to sound the alarms. Hey, we've seen the extent to which dangerous, dehumanizing language can cause unimaginable harm. So for that reason, let's just have a zero tolerance policy for it in American politics. That's what people are trying to do. Now, of course, as we talk about all these different things in relation to Trump, so many people quickly go, yeah, but Biden's Now, personally, I've talked extensively about how Biden has actually had an incredibly successful presidency thus far, and I wish he got more credit for that. But regardless of if you fully agree with me or not, can we just put this into context? The other guy is going to be someone who chose himself over the Constitution and called for the termination of the Constitution and over our democracy, is currently being prosecuted for trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, among other prosecutions, not to mention him being a civilly liable rapist, party of family values, and guilty of fraud, and he mismanaged a pandemic, and he's spewing rhetoric like this. And we're getting reporting now that behind the scenes, detailed plans are being put together, some that are pretty out in the open actually, to lock up his critics if he gets into the White House again and invoke the Insurrection Act and mobilize the military on the streets to crush demonstrations. Here's MSNBC's Jen Psaki reminding us of this.
Guess what? Joe Biden isn't perfect. No candidate is, by the way. But we have to understand what the alternative is here. If elected to a second term, Donald Trump would prosecute anyone he deems an enemy, unleash troops on protesters, and essentially unravel the rule of law as we know it. And this time, he plans to line his administration with people who will actually help him do it. But sure, Joe Biden is 3 years older and occasionally trips over things. Look, there's a lot to be concerned about right now when it comes to a second Trump term. The speeches are getting much more disturbing and much more unhinged, and we should all hear it that way. It's also important to talk about all of this and important to call it out. But there is nothing more important than digging into his actual plans. The faintest of silver linings here is that Trump is warning us in his own voice, with a microphone on and a camera rolling, by the way. He's telling us exactly what he plans to do. We all just need to listen.
And she couldn't be more correct. The stakes in this election are far too high for people to be complacent or to downplay the present threats or to obsess over every little flaw of Biden's or all these different things. Let's stay focused on what we're really dealing with here. By the way, as I've said now many times, yes, Trump is a wannabe dictator with no respect for democracy, incredibly dangerous. And also, he's not too sharp. Here's him once again, I think for like the 7th time, thinking that Barack Obama is the current president of the United States.
You know, one story, a quick story. You don't mind if I go off teleprompter like a lot, do you? So much more exciting. So much more. But the head of Hungary, a very tough, strong guy, Viktor Orban. Did anybody ever hear of him? Probably, considered very powerful within his country and outside of his country. Not exactly loved by some of the European nations because he does his thing. He didn't allow millions of people to invade his country. He allowed nobody to invade. Zero. He had nobody. So he doesn't have crime and he doesn't have the problems that they're having in other countries where millions of people are allowed to go in. But they were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding and imploding. And he said, it's very simple. He should immediately resign, and they should replace him with President Trump, who kept the world safe. And I'm not just talking the United States.
So he said that Viktor Orban's advice 2 weeks ago to President Obama was to immediately resign as president and make Trump the president. Something seems off about that. Who knows what he's talking about? Say what you want about Biden. He knows who the current president is. He's looking in the mirror. And then here was last time Trump did this.
But I know you never paid, under your administration, you guys never paid ransom.
Brian, it's all coming through Iran, and Obama he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to he doesn't even mention them in his statements. It's all coming through Iran.
Now, I told you I would compare the Veterans Day messages of Trump and Biden. So let's look at Trump's first. In honor of our great veterans on Veterans Day, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and radical left thugs that live like vermin, there it is again, within the confines of our country, lie, steal, and cheat on elections, and will do anything possible, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and the American dream. The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within. Despite the hatred and anger of the radical left lunatics who want to destroy our country, we will make America great again. Okay, so there it is from Trump. Now let's look at the president. Not Barack Obama, Joe Biden. Today we honor the story of our veterans, the story of our nation at its best. On Veterans Day, let's recommit to fulfilling our one sacred obligation as a nation to prepare those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home. So there we go. Big difference. Then further emphasizing this contrast, here was an ad that the Biden campaign ran during a game on Veterans Day.
Joining the Army was a childhood dream because my dad served. I enlisted when I was 17 years of age. I served 7 years active duty, and I was exposed to toxic burn pits in Iraq. I always have health problems because of it. When I got home, I couldn't get the health care I needed. It was a difficult road, not only for me, but for my family, for my wife.
Having to watch the father of my children plagued with these horrible diseases has been heart-wrenching. So many people turned their backs on us, the government and Congress.
That changed when Joe Biden was elected. He's a military father. He saw us, and he got something done for us.
President Biden signed legislation yesterday expanding medical care for veterans exposed to toxic burn pits.
The PACT Act, the most significant expansion of veterans' health care and benefits in more than 30 years, is now law.
President Biden, he kept his word to veterans. I'm proud of my service, and I'm proud of my president.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
You know, so often Republicans fall for the bumper stickers. Oh, Republicans are for our veterans and love the military. But then you look at the policy record of the two parties, and it tells a very different story. I mean, who is currently holding up military promotions? A Republican Senator, Tommy Tuberville. Who signed into law the PACT Act? Joe Biden. Who suggested abolishing the VA? Matt Gaetz. And it goes on. So please, all I ask is look at the actual policy making that's going on. And I'm telling you, a lot of the time when you do that, the branding that Republicans have done falls apart. A little bonus clip. Here was now disgraced TV star Roseanne Barr speaking at the Trump rally that we looked at. And I guess talking about how much she wanted to touch Trump all over his beautiful, wonderful body or something.
I love you all so much. I got to get my picture taken with President Trump about a week ago there at Mar-a-Lago, and it was so exciting. I could hardly control myself. I went in there and I grabbed at him, and he was so nice. He just kind of gently rearranged my arms so nicely. And afterwards I thought, oh my God, I could have got shot. The way I was grabbing at him with the Secret Service, I was just like, oh, I love you. But, I could hardly control myself.
I present that with no comment other than, it's a cult. Before you go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, where you get access to the daily bonus show. Isn't that just so wonderful? Monday through Friday, a bonus show. Plus, follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, X at Luke P. Beasley, and sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter that summarizes the previous day's events by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief. And I'll talk to you all next time.